And now I'm recording. All right, welcome everybody. Good morning. Welcome back. Today is Monday, the 30th of March, and we are doing Hapara, Beginning Hapara for remote learning. And we do have this afternoon at, I believe it's 11:30. I'm not sure the time, you'll have to check the schedule, the intermediate Hapara, which will go a little bit more into Workspace. But today we'll be talking about some basic things to get you started with Hapara, and this would be for you if you have maybe been to a Chromebook Academy and it's just been a while since you've used it, or you use it but you're only familiar with some features like highlights. And we'll talk about some of the basic different features, and we'll talk a little bit about Workspace. And at the end, we'll open it up to some questions. For now, I'm asking that you would keep yourself muted, and you might not be able to unmute yourself right now. We're still learning how Zoom works, and thank you for your patience with us as we figure this out, and or as I figure this out. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to be sharing my screen for the beginning part of this, so here we go. Let's see how smoothly I can do this. Let's see. Okay, so here's my screen, and I'm going to go into present mode. And this was this cute little nifty timer that I had set in, but it didn't work because I couldn't see the screen that I wanted to when I wanted to see it. So, all right, so video is optional, but we do recommend that you keep your video off. It just kind of will keep the bandwidth down, and so that you won't, so it doesn't get too glitchy for you. If you have any questions, please post them in chat. Steve is moderating for me, so that if you have a question, if I'm going too fast, if I'm going too slow, then you can let him know, and he'll chime in and let me know. And then I grabbed this from Steve's. Let's be kind, especially to me, because this is new to me, and I was like really nervous before we started. I still kind of am a little bit, even though I've talked to a lot of you many, many times before. This just seems to be something new for me. So I'm growing dendrites because I'm learning stuff. It's exciting. So as I was thinking about how we are navigating this whole remote learning thing, it kind of reminded me of this. And so I have this tiny little video clip to share with you. I'm going to play this through. Hopefully oh, wait a minute, that didn't work. Let's go back. How do I go back? It's not doing what I want. There we go.
Yeah, I'm not getting any sound.
No sound?
No sound.
Wow, no, that's a pity. I wonder why that is.
Yep.
Well, you learned something new. Okay, so I'm just going to explain. I'm not going to keep trying to play it if nobody has any sound, and maybe anybody else can chime in and let you know whether or not they hear any sound, or we're hearing any sound. Hopefully they can hear me. I'm hoping everybody can still hear me. But the video is from Apollo 13, and it was basically where they were trying to build a filter, and they don't have all the right parts, and they've got to kind of put it together to keep these people alive. And I've heard the analogy of we're building the plane while we're flying it. That's kind of what we're doing here. So we're learning as we go. So just keep that in mind to extend a little bit of grace. It's the biggest kind of brave. It's sometimes, we'll make mistakes, and it's okay. You'll learn from my mistakes. If you decide to do a Zoom meeting with your students or Google Hangouts and you see the errors I make, you can learn from them. But in thinking of working with your students, just wanted to share this little gem I got from Matt Miller. It's about things that students need from their teachers. It's been a while since you've seen your kids. Maybe some of you have been in contact with them over the break, and if so, that's awesome. There's some suggestions to connect with them via Flipgrid, or maybe posting videos in your Google Classroom to share with the kids. And remembering to support them with digital citizenship, because it's that whole, we've been talking to them about it all year long, but kind of hiding behind a computer or behind a screen may cause them to kind of forget their social contract. So reminding their social contract, giving them the support and helping them, assuming best intentions that they're trying to do the right thing. Remember to make sure that you're very clear in your assignments, and then just kind of encourage and love on them and let them know that you miss them, and I'm sure they miss you too. I'm seeing my chat button light up, so Steve's got stuff going on there. I hope if there's anything you need to chime in on, Steve, go ahead and do so. Oops, okay. So our agenda for today, I'm going to talk to you basically about how to get into Hapara via ClassLink. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the dashboard and how you can use that to share files with your students. We'll talk a little bit about highlights, which is a lot of teachers' favorite feature about Hapara. And then we're going to get into Workspace for online learning. So first of all, ClassLink. Are we good here? Is there any questions before I move on to this?
No, you're good right now. I will chime in and stop if it's important. If not, I'll just answer it by typing in responses. Or if it's something that we can wait till the end, we'll take care of it then.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, so first of all, let me just share this a little bit. As I sit here in front of my screen, I'm sharing my screen. And if you teach your students, you may be sharing your screen with them. But my little camera light is on, which means that just because I don't see you doesn't mean you can't see me. And if you've got a little window going, you probably still see me, or you back and forth between me sharing your screen. So keep in mind that when your little camera light is on, if that's the type of device that you have, you're still on camera. So, no weird stuff going on. Okay, so ClassLink. You get to ClassLink from the school district website. I believe it's still in online services, but for students who are using their home device, maybe they're not using a Chromebook that they've checked out of school, or a TAP device that is now their own personal Chromebook, but they would need to add this ClassLink extension, and I do believe that an email came out last week sometime about how to make sure that they add that ClassLink extension so that ClassLink will work on their device. If nothing else, this website here, cl.palmdalesd.org, is, let me see, get my little pointer, my little laser pointer here. cl@palmdalesd.org will get you to the ClassLink extension, and then they would type, if they've not connected their Google, they'll type their user ID, their Active Directory. So that's their student ID number minus the Palmdale SD, and then their 8-digit birthday login. Unless they're 6th through 8th, then they've changed that. A Chrome browser is recommended. So if you're using an iPad, it would be best to make sure that you downloaded the Google Chrome to your iPad. Safari, for Hapara, Safari will not work. Hapara will not work in Safari. You need to have the Google Chrome. So again, when you go to ClassLink, for teachers, I do believe it's already pushed out. It's the teacher dashboard icon looks like this. For students, if you need to have students access it, then they would look for this in the student library.
Yeah, we were asked that in one of the questions, and so I'm glad you addressed that. So the answer is, if it's not in your ClassLink, at least look at the teacher section of it, and you can actually add it to your ClassLink homepage.
Okay, so I'm going to stop my share real quick and kind of just walk through that. If I can find my... Okay, so I'm not sharing. I stopped my share. I'm going to escape out of this. All right, I'm learning. I'm going to go back, try this again. I'm going to reshare. And here we go. Okay. So, oh my, these tools though get in my way all the time. Okay, so let me go to ClassLink. And so here's my teacher dashboard. If you do not have this icon on your ClassLink, and I'll go a little bit slow in case some of you are checking on your ClassLink right now to see if you have it on maybe another tab. If you do not have that icon, you would come up here to this plus sign, the app library, click on the plus, and for teachers, you would come over to the teacher library and then start typing in. Now, I don't think it'll show up on mine because, okay. It does show up. So Hapara teacher, that would be in the teacher library. For students, you can direct them to, boy, no matter how many times I move this, it gets in my way. For students, you can direct them to student library, and they can either type in Hapara or I think my student dashboard. Hapara student will come up, and the kids can add that to their class link. Otherwise, when I go back to my settings here, otherwise, they would have, I know I don't have the full presentation mode, but they would have this link to look for, and they can add it. If they're just typing it in their browser, they type mystudentdashboard.com, and that will take them there. Okay, so go back to present, and here we go, next tab. So first I'm going to talk about dashboard. A couple of things that we're going to touch on in here in dashboard. All classes versus my classes. When the new semester changed over, if you are in Hapara, sometimes they archive the first semester's classes, sometimes they don't, and I think this semester they did not, so you may have to go in there to find the right class. I'm going to show you how to add your administrator as a teacher on your account, because we understand that whether you do Hapara or whether you do Google Classroom, you need to have your administrator on, so I'll show you how to do that, and then talk to you about sharing files. And so we're going to go live on that one. So I'm still sharing my screen. Okay, so I'm going to go into Hapara. So when you first go into Hapara, you have a list of all your classes here. Now, all of mine show up, and technically, I believe these two right here, do you see how it says Language Arts Period 1, Language Arts Period 1? I believe those two, one of them should have been a first semester class, but I went through and accidentally, or on purpose, added students to that class. But you might have some that when you click on it, there's not a student in here. Oh, good, I did it right. Okay, I removed a student. If it comes up and says there's no students in this class, that's the wrong class. So I look at the number up here, it's 395. So when I go back to all classes, the way I can get this one out of my way so that I don't keep seeing it and keep clicking on it and wasting time is I'll come over to this star, and just by clicking on it, it'll tell me that this will no longer show in my classes. So I've got my classes up here. Here's all classes. So if I refresh the screen, so all classes shows me everything I've unchecked. My classes, now you'll see that 395 is gone. It used to be right here. Now it's gone. So if you have some of those that say no student in this class, you're going to want to go through and uncheck them. If you are in a middle school, you probably have a lot of these. If you're in an elementary school, you might just have homeroom, but I think you might have science and math. It's been a while since I've seen those. For today, I'm going to be talking about this particular class right here. And just a little side note, and maybe Steve will edit this out and we're recording if this is not okay to say this, I'm not too sure. But for those of you that have rosters, who don't have rosters, maybe RSP teacher, that question came up in the beginning. If you have a Google Classroom, you can sync your Google Classroom. If you look in the top right here, it says add or sync a class. And if you sync with Google Classroom, your roster will show up in here. So that's one way to get your roster in here, but keep in mind that that will not be maintained by the district or Infinite Campus. So if a student leaves your class, if a student is added to your class, you do have to resync that class so that you'll have a correct roster in there. Okay, so another thing you might notice is we have these really ridiculous long names here. This is the Infinite Campus name for the classes, and how you can change that. So maybe you can determine which one's your science class period 1, science class period 4, or whatever, is to give it a nickname. And you'll do that by using this little pencil up here. Clicking on that pencil will allow you to retype a nickname for it. I named this one James because he's the only kid in that class, or was at the time, my fake student, James Fido. And then save it right there. So that's one place that you can edit it. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second. Are we good? We're good, Steve? Yep. I'm going to assume yes if you don't pop in. Okay.
Yeah, I was on another page. I was just looking over everybody. I know I've been answering some things behind the scenes. And
okay.
So sometimes, guys, I see that some of the questions are being asked of how do I do something because it was mentioned and you started trying to do that while the presenter is showing you on the screen. You might want to watch that. Remember, this is being recorded, so you can refer back to it. I have put in a link to some more ClassLink help on how to log into it and how resources on where you can add your stuff in. As far as that, I'm not sure, the question is, how do you do that? I'm not sure what that is. So please make your questions very specific so we can work on it that way. Thanks. Carry on.
Okay, yeah, especially since we'll be addressing those at the end, and how did you do that could mean anything. So again, if I wanted to add the nickname, I'll just kind of recap. This little pencil here, if you see a little pencil, that will allow you to edit. That's an editing pencil. Anytime you see a pencil, pretty much on any website that you're working on or any kind of Google Classroom, whatever it is, if you've got a pencil there, you can probably edit it. So I'm coming back up here to the All Classes tab. And I've got a list of my classes. You'll notice that my James class is way down here at the bottom. But if you look at the screen, I put it on top. That's because I can move these around. I can move them around. Okay. I know I can move them around, and it's not letting me do it right now for I don't know what reason, because I've done it before. Am I not grabbing it right? Okay, well, forget it. My stars. It is what it is.
I'm going to suggest that if you had expanded your view of your screen and increased the size for people to see it better, to bring it back to actual size, and that might be the reason.
Don't think I did. I'm at 100%, so.
All right.
Who knows? Okay, anywho, thanks for that though. So I'm gonna go into this class. I'm gonna choose this class. You can normally drag and move them. I'm just probably not grabbing them correctly or who knows what. I'm gonna go into this class and you'll see that there's a menu across the top here. I'm dragging my mouse across the top and it highlights as I go over them. So I'm gonna talk about dashboard first. I'm in dashboard actually. It automatically drops you right into dashboard. Now I should be able to move students around too. Oh, you know why? It's because I wasn't using 2 fingers. Sorry, because I can't manipulate with just one hand. I've got to use my hands. I got a big touchpad. Okay, so but anyway, I won't need to do that here. So in dashboard, you'll notice that there are these subject folders. These were created in Drive because of how the students roster for English, math, language arts, social studies, or well, English as language arts. And here in dashboard, there's a couple of things. I'll talk about share files, which is over here in a minute. But if you look over in the far right in this menu, across this menu, there's class info. And if I click the class info button, this is almost like clicking on that pencil. If I hover over the name of the class info, you can see that this box lights up. If I click in here, I can re-edit the nickname if I want. I cannot edit this infinite campus number. That'll always be there. It just won't show up. And you'll notice that under teachers, I've already added Dan as a teacher to this class. But if I wanted to add somebody else, like I want to add Steve, I can click add new, come over here, and I start typing his email address. And I can add teacher. Now, why this is really important for some of you is if you are at a dual immersion school and you have a partner teacher. So you teach the Spanish, your other partner teacher teaches the language arts component, but you want access to the same rosters in Hapara, you would need to add your partner teacher's name so that they could see your roster. So add new, click here, add teacher. It may do it immediately. It may take an overnight refresh. I think it does it immediately because I see his name right there. If I want to remove someone, sorry, Dan, I'm going to remove you. I could just click the remove button. Are you sure? Yes, I'm removing Dan. Sorry, Dan. But here's where you would add your administrator so that they can be able to be a part of your class and support you with your students. So I think that was all I wanted to show about adding administrator parts. So class info, teachers, add new, type in their email address, and they will have access to your Hapara class. Okay. And so let me go back to dashboard. Last thing I wanted to talk, I know I'm feel like I'm going kind of fast, but the last thing I want to talk about in dashboard here, groups is okay. I'm going to talk more about groups when it comes to, because for remote learning, it may not be really necessary right now. When we come back, call your coach in, we'll come to your site and we'll work on Hapara with you and support you in that way. But the share files button over here, right now, you can use this button to push out information. Maybe you have a document you created in your Drive. You created this amazing slide deck you want to share with your students. You've got this PDF that's fabulous and they need to see it or they need to use it to do their work. Who knows? So you would click on the Share Files button and Smart Share opens up. And what you have the ability to do is add up to 5 files from your Google Drive. You can select them from your Drive. You can create a brand new file. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And you can choose whether you want to share it with the class. If you are differentiating and you have different articles that you might be sharing with different students for whatever reason, you can choose by student. Or if you have groups, which we'll talk about groups in a minute. I'm going to scroll all the way down here. You'll see this is James. I can decide whether it goes into his English folder. I'm going to choose science because I'll probably find a science thing. So I want it to go into James's, or this class. It says James, but this is the name of the whole class. I'm going to put it into this class's science folder. I'm going to select a file from my Google Drive. And as it loads up, there we go. Okay, I'll come down to my science. Somewhere I have a science folder. Internet's a little bit slow. And let's see, maybe I want them to have a copy of these notes. So I'll select that. I'm going to select another file. You can select up to 5, remember. And I can also get there if I start typing in science. I can grab that folder. If you have a lot in your Drive, you might want to do that. Let me go into units. And I'm going to be doing a thing on ecosystems in a little bit. And let's say I have some sort of activity. Who knows what that is, but I'm going to add it. Now you'll notice, so I can add up to 5 things. I have some options here for each one of these. I can append names. So what that means is that when I assign it to a student, I can attach their name to it so I know whose it is. I don't have to worry about trying to give them directions to please add your name to the assignment. It's already here, saves us time. So if I append name, and I can say, well, nope, this one, I'm not going to need them to append name, but this one, they're going to have their own copy. So I definitely want their name attached to this assignment. And over here on permissions is where I say, okay, yep, they are going to be allowed to, they're not going to read only, they're not going to just comment, they are going to be able to read write, which is basically edit. They're going to be able to edit this one. And on this one, they're only having a copy and it's going to be read only. Okay, so I can select those files. I come down to the student search. I like to check, yep, it's going to this, and I'm going to smart share to one class. So that's going to be processing. It takes a minute, and I probably shouldn't have clicked that because now that might slow down my computer. We'll see. So that's one way that you can share files with your students from Dashboard. I'm going to come back to my presentation here and pause. And Steve, is there anything that we need to talk about or I need to review before I move on?
The answer to that is when they edit, are they only editing their copy?
Through Smart Share, yes, they're basically going to get their own copy. And so they'll be editing that. It
works a lot like Google Classroom in regards to permissions on that stuff too.
Correct. Okay, so going back to present, I think, let me look at my fancy slides here. Oh, yes. So in presenting here, did the live. So highlights, which tends to be a favorite of a lot of teachers who use Hapara, is because you have the opportunity to send messages to your students. You can guide their browsing and show them where to go, open up tabs for them. so that they don't have to try and type the long thing in there by themselves. You can look at the activity viewer and see what it is, who's working on what, and you can even pause screens so that you can get their attention. However, for remote learning, it's completely useless. You cannot see the students' devices while they're working from home, and really, why would you want to? You've got a lot of other things to worry about than that. So for right now, you want to learn about how Highlights works. Again, when we come back, call us in and we will coach you through that and help you to learn all the tips and tricks. But for remote learning, this is not even going to where you want to spend any amount of your time. What we're going to focus on for the last half of this section today is Workspace. And we're not going to talk about every single one of these things. Hang on, my little pointer. We're not going to talk about every one of these things, but you can kind of read that there. Workspace is used for, this would be like if you choose Hapara over Google Classroom, or you want to use them both together, which you can. Workspace is a place where you can curate all of the digital content, whether it be videos or tutorials, or you communicating with them putting their assignments in, turning assignments into you, keeping a list of the standards like a word wall, the vocabulary lists, whatever it is you need to do, you can keep it all in one place in this organized format. I'm not going to talk too much about tracking their mastery of online content. And we're not, and when it comes to personalizing and differentiating, we'll kind of cover that when we talk about groups. And I'm going to show you again how to collaborate with other teachers, which part of it was where you added a teacher to your, kind of like how you added the teacher to your class if you decided to do that. And then I'm going to show you where you can find some public workspaces. No sense in reinventing the wheel. If somebody's already created something and you just want to tweak it to make it fit your class, why not? So this you will have access to it, later. It'll be in the video, and I'm going to give you a link at the end, but there's this link to a video on how you can use Workspace that might give it in better detail than what I have time for today. Plus, you'll be able to pause and stop this one as well, and a link to a whole bunch of other videos. There's a little bit of a cheat sheet on here, which I'm going to go over all of this live right now. So I'm not stopping my screen share, but I am going to get out of my, hey, look at that. I figured that part out. So I'm going to go back into my Hapara teacher dashboard, and I'm going to click on Workspace. Now here's a really cool thing. Workspace just had a new revamp, so it looks way better than it used to, and you can kind of make it fancy. So you'll see it opened it up in this class. I don't have any particular workspaces for this class, but I'm going to go to all the ones owned by me, and then you can see them here. So if you're brand new after this class, you want to go through and check out the Discover tab, then you can do that, or you can do that and I'll stay online, and you can do that and check back with me, and I'll be here to answer your questions as best I can. But I'm going to go into one of these right now, this that I created for my 7th grade class, or I started to. So here's a workspace. Okay, so there's a lot of different features to the workspace. Keeping an eye on the time here. There's a description. I've written a description in here, and how you'll see there's no pencil. There's no edit button right here. How do I edit this? I can show more, but how did I put this here? If you come over to the far right, see how there's a publish button and there's a more actions button. Whenever you see the 3 dots, that usually means there's something more there. So I click on the more actions, and over here I can edit my workspace. So when I click on that, you'll notice that these title sections all became little boxes that I can type in, as well as the section here. You'll notice that there's a little bit of HTML in here, and in the advanced class or the intermediate class, I might go into that. I haven't decided that part yet. It's not till tomorrow. But you can put the description of what this workspace is and what you expect students to do with it, or what it's for, or what unit it covers, or whatever. And then when you're done, you hit save when you've typed what you want. But notice as I hover over these, I can still change the titles. And we know this because of the pencil, right? The pencil shows up. For the students, if I left this website as is, they would only be able to see 3 columns. And you can tell why. There's nothing in this column. So this column will not show up for my students until I put something in. Okay, so I'm going to talk about those columns in just a minute, but first I'm going to talk about the groups. So you'll notice over here on the side, for this particular website, I have groups that, since it's on ecosystems, I had groups representing the different biomes. Inside the groups, I have my fake students that I've added in here to different groups. Maybe your groups are you have your leveled readers, or maybe you have, maybe it's not just units of study, maybe it's you've got your GATE kids, your ELL, but keep in mind that they see the names of these groups if they're in the group. So you don't want to have anything that says, this is my favoriteest group of kids, unless they all say that, then that might be okay. But favorite group of kids 1, favorite group of kids 2, I don't know. But you maybe will know, maybe you have color groups, or you have them by college names, or who knows what. And different cards can be assigned to different groups. So how I edit those groups is I come down to the little cog wheel. This little settings wheel is usually, again, if you need to change something, you look for pencil, you can edit some things. Also look for that little settings cog wheel. I click on edit groups, and it takes me to my groups. How I can add students to this group is I come down to my class. I think I grab these all from my fake class. I think is where I grab these particular people. So here's my list of students. As long as there's no work completed in that group, you can remove a student. So if I think, nope, Rentin is not going to be in this group anymore, I'm going to put her in a different group, so I can remove her because no work has been completed. I believe no work has been completed. Apparently I had to do some work in that class. Let's see, maybe this one. Let's try the Marine group. Okay, so no work was completed in the Marine group, and I removed somebody. Wasn't paying attention who. I think it was Abner. That's okay, Abner was in 2 other groups. He doesn't need to be. Otherwise, if I want to add somebody, I can just grab them. Goofy's not in a group, and I'll grab Goofy and toss him into the deciduous forest group, and there is his name. Goofy's in that group. So that's how you can add students into your group. I keep a group called Teacher Planning where I post everything, and then from there, it's kind of like my workspace. And if you are sharing your workspace with another teacher, you can toss everything and only keep it in this group. And I know I'm saying a lot of different things. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in just a second. But you can do all of your work in this group and then assign it to your students as needed. So I'm going to leave this group. And how I can edit my groups is how I start a new group is just click here. Maybe this group is assorted biomes. And I believe you can have up to 200 groups, although I'm not sure why you would want that many. But and I'll make this one this dark blue. Is nothing else a dark blue? No. So I can make it that color. Next. And there's nobody in this group until I decide to add somebody to that group. So that's how I add the groups. I don't think you can move these. No. Come back. I'm going to go back to the bottom here. So this is this column where all my classes, I'm in groups. If you see at the very bottom, it says teachers. Oh, no, that's not the one. That's the wrong place. Never mind. Erase, rewind. Delete that part, Steve. Okay, so I go back to my workspace. Down here, where it says teachers, I can add a teacher to this workspace. And again, same thing like you did before. Start typing in their email at pondelsd.org. And this is really great for planning. So if you are, as a grade level, you decide all of 3rd grade is going to work together, we're going to create this amazing unit, you put everybody on this workspace. And then once you've created your entire unit, you've added, and I'll show you how to add stuff, but when you've added all the cards you want, added all the information you want that's for the unit, maybe you have some specific stuff to your class you want to add later, but as far as the unit planning goes, then the teachers who do not own this but are sharing this, what they can do is they can come up here, again, to more actions, and copy that workspace so that they get everything the same. The groups will remain the same, but the students will fall out. So if I have my list of students, well, you saw I have my list of Abner, DOG, John. I have these students. If I add somebody to this group, if I add Steve to this group as a teacher and he decides to copy this, he will get the groups, but these will all be empty. He can then put his own students in those groups. But he will get all the cards, all the work. And of course, if I'm going to put an assignment in, like something like this, I'll talk about in a minute, I'm going to have to remember to make sure that I have those sharing permissions open so that if he wanted to use that resource, that he would be able to use that. I would set those permissions up in Google. I'm going to pause real quick. Steve, is there anything? No, we're good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still dealing with emails and everything else at the same time. So no new questions
Okay.
other than why would we use Hapara versus Google Classroom? It said something about sourcing information and resources. I think you covered the idea that you can go and find other people's resources. You can co-create those resources.
I'm going to show how to do that in a minute too.
Awesome. And
Grabbing,
so,
yeah.
But really comes down to what you're comfortable with. If your students have been using Google Classroom at this time and date, use Google Classroom. If you've used Hapara before, go with Hapara. If you've used neither of them, pick your poison.
Yeah, I'd be honest, starting with Google Classroom is probably a little bit easier than starting with Hapara. And maybe that's just me, but when I first was learning about Hapara versus Google Classroom was a lot easier for me to grab the main idea of how it works and to click around and not wonder what happened, as opposed to when I started learning about Hapara, I had to attend several trainings before I felt comfortable. But you know, that's the way I learned. So maybe you learn differently, and maybe for you, Hapara's like, psh, I got this. I don't know. I'm going to show you a couple of features before I go on to showing you that other thing too. Okay, this. If you're using Google Classroom with Hapara Workspace and you want to share this, you've created this amazing workspace and you want to share it with your students through Google Classroom, which is an option. You are not going to come down here and use the sharing, okay, because that's not going to help these kids. You're going to go all the way up to the top. I think you can see the top part of my screen, yes? Can you see where, like, all my little pin tabs and everything? Yes, I hope. And you're going to grab the URL from the Omni box here. You're going to grab that whole thing, and that's what you'll share with your students. I learned that happy, healthy little tidbit a while ago. So, but if you're sharing with your teachers, then other teachers, you could share this link if you make it. See if I make it visible. Okay, then. All right, I've got some other errors somewhere else. Okay, that's all right. Don't worry about that. Okay, I still got to talk to you about cards and all these tabs. But let me talk about the tabs first. So the way it defaults that this one's called goals, this one's resources, this is evidence, and this is for rubrics. And the little pluses is where you add them, but remember, these are editable. So if I don't want to call this goals, if I want to call this, if I want to call this standards or learning objectives, oh, I always do that. Whatever it is that you call it in your class, whatever the kids are used to, then go ahead and call it that. So now I've renamed it. This one can be resources. This can be like, I saw another one, they said, let's learn. Again, with the, sorry, I do that with my second letter. I leave the caps on too long. So you can name it whatever you want. Oops, if I want to create a new tab, a new card, I click the plus button. If I want to create a new card at the bottom, I click the plus button down at the bottom. If I want to move things around, I can grab it, slide it, and pop it in there. They just move with a drop and drag. And so here's a new update. Let me give you an update that other people may not be aware. It defaults that students can add cards to these center 2 columns. They can click on a plus. So maybe if this was resources and kids are doing some work and they want to share their resources, they can drop it into that column. They can add things. That might be great. If you have your workspaces for certain groups, that might be great. If not, if you've got the whole class, that can make those columns really long, and sometimes they might get silly. And while you can edit them and you can delete them, that they will still keep adding them. By the way, don't worry. Anything you put in there, they cannot delete. They can only add to it. They can't delete. However,
Melissa, I'm going to pop in with a great question right now.
Sure.
Sharon asked, so if we add our admin to our dashboard, do we still need to add them to each workspace?
I do believe you do. Yeah, because I added you in my dashboard to one of my classes, but this is a workspace. It's a different thing, right? This is not specific to that class.
Right. I would say that if your principals are, or admin are monitoring that work is being produced for students to participate in, then you would need to add them as a teacher to the workspace.
Yeah, I was just thinking that after I showed how to add it there, that all that will show is whether or not you're sharing files, or it'll share their roster with them. So that may not be very helpful unless the admin wants to go in and look through all their files, and that might be too much work, but this is probably the place where they want to add it. So thank you, good question. Another thing I wanted to point out here is this is the new update. It says students can add cards. You can now toggle that off. Now, but what if kids are doing research? I want them to add their information. So here's my suggestion. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail right now because I feel like I'm starting to run out of time here, but I've created a card that on this card, and let me show you what it looks like when you edit a card, or if you click plus and create a new card, it's the same thing. If I click a new card, here's what it'll look like. If I click on edit, it gives me the same thing. I added a spreadsheet to my documents so that the kids have editing rights to. I enable the permissions so that students could edit this spreadsheet. And since they're doing ecosystems, my directions were, find any research, an article, a video, whatever, and add it here on your group's correct tab. And then on the spreadsheet, there's different tabs. And I'll click on that in just a minute. But I want you to notice something else about these cards is when I told you I would talk to you about differentiating or personalizing learning. Maybe you have kids who you want them to work together, but you want them to collaborate, but you have kids who struggle with their reading, and you have students who excel at reading. And so there's different levels. What you can do is you can put different levels. We now have, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have Newsela has been opened up to the district. And so you can go in and get information there, at least until the end of the year. And so what I did is I created, so you look, I have what is an ecosystem. This is green card. This is opened up to one group, which is just teacher planning. But maybe my rainforest group are my kids who struggle a little bit. So what I did is I went into Newsela, and I'm just going to click on this link real quick. I went into Newsela, and I grabbed the code I chose the 360 level, the lowest reading level here. So that's a grade level 2. Maybe I have those who really, really struggle. This is my text level 2. I grabbed the code from up here in this bar, and that is what I pasted in my workspace on this card. So maybe the kids, same article. So maybe the kids who struggle, I can come here and say, okay, this is my rainforest group, so I'm going to edit it. I'm going to come down and assign it to the rainforest group. So me, as a teacher planner, and the rainforest group. And now that's the only group who gets to see it besides the teacher. And what I can give in my directions is, okay, you're going to read your what is an ecosystem article. They all have the what is an ecosystem article. This is maybe my high group. This may be my little bit, near average or near reading level. This is maybe the desert group. And then all the other groups are reading at grade level. Wouldn't that be nice? And so then they have the highest level for that particular class. So I could have groups where the kids can participate. I can have another activity where they participate in a discussion, a Padlet, or share on a Google Doc or whatever, and they all have the same information and they can all talk about the same issues, but it's at different reading levels. So here's one way, and by color coding the cards, and I color code just by choosing it right here. That's for my benefit. The kids will only see the card if their group is assigned to that card. So you saw how I chose that. Go back in here again. When I edit it, I assign the group right down here. I put the article in by copying that link out of Newsela, right? Copying the link out of here, coming over here, clicking the link button, and I can attach several resources, and I would paste the link right there. Let me click out. I could also, scroll down. I can create something new right in here. I can grab something from my drive. If I have anything in my drive that I want to share with students, I can grab it out right here. All kinds of stuff. What's going on here? And maybe I want an image. No, I don't want that image. But I can. You can see how I can grab stuff out of my drive, paste it in here. There's also this little icon here. There's a whole bunch of icons. I put the book because the book means reading, because I say so. It could mean whatever I want it to mean. You let the kids know what that means to you. But you'll notice that up in my description here, I had light bulb icon equals learner's choice. Star icon is a must do. So over here I have a star icon. Kids would know that this is a must do. They need to complete the survey. They must do the graphic organizer. And these are where I let them have a choice. So these would all appear. I didn't go into detail creating these, but
so I'm gonna cut in because you're right. Your cursor is right on the right spot right now where it says video.
yes.
And the question from Margaret was, can you review the video before student post if they are creating their own video demonstrating learning? It won't show up for everybody in the stream in that section, in the evidence section.
Oh, correct. This evidence section is basically just for the teacher. All the students would see is, like, they kind of look at whether or not they've submitted it on this particular video. Because I don't have anything attached, you see how there's none of this stuff? There's none of this little like attachment. I just said keep, and obviously this is not a complete card because that's really vague, right? Keep video presentation. There's no directions. That's not a very helpful assignment for students. What about video? What am I using? How am I doing it? How long does it have to be? What I've got that part.
But the point is that only you as a teacher are going to see evidence that they submit.
Right. Nobody else will see this.
Now, if they do make a video and try to put it in as a resource, that's a different story.
Sure. But again, where would they put it? If you have something like this, yeah. Otherwise, they would put it here unless you turn this off.
There you go.
Keep that in mind. Good question. Thank you. I feel like oh yes. I'm not going to go into sections too much, but if organizing things in this way, I saw another workspace where they had just the description of what these headings were, and then they immediately started with each one of these headings basically was a section. So they had learning objectives down here, and then they had let's learn on the next section, and they just kept adding sections. So it's however you want to do it. So as it's I've been going for almost an hour here. I want to make sure that I talk about how to create new workspaces or where to find other workspaces. So again, back up to the top on these more actions. If I click on more actions here, oh no, I'm sorry. If I want to look for a new, oh my goodness, new workspace. You know what I don't see? Where is did it move or did I miss it? There used to be just search workspaces. Let me go home and see if they moved that. That could be, oh, forget it. I don't want it. Let me go back. Let me go back to home. They might have moved it to home because they did revamp it. Previous layout, professional in my living. Oh, Discover. That's what it's going to be in the Discover. Okay, so it used to be over there. So they've moved it. So at the beginning, I talked to you about my workspaces. You've got owned by you, shared with you. So this is where if somebody else in your grade level maybe created the workspace and then a teacher added on, it would be one of the ones that are shared with you. You can label them. So if I go to the Discover, here's just all sorts of workspaces that have been already created by teachers out in the world who've made it public. So you can scroll through these if you want. You can also start looking at, maybe you're looking for something on the revolution. Let's see what comes up. Okay, so there's some key resources here. You can type it. You can, instead of doing it this way, you can straight up go by grade level. Oh, I'm a 5th grade teacher. And, oh, there's only one 5th grade teacher. Oops, with Revolution, sorry. Let me get rid of my filter here. Here's where your filters are. I can go 5th grade and I can say, well, I'm 5th grade, but I'm looking for a workspace for math. Click my math filter. And here are some 10 workspaces that have been already created. Look them over. You can like say, oh, I want to see what this fraction is. Oh, and this thrilling adventure. Oh, look.
Yes, some of those are better than others.
Yeah, some are very blank. Some of them, and keep in mind that if you find one that you love, 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 and you say, oh, this is great. Some of these things they may not have open to you, so you might not be able to see them, but maybe you like the way they organize the cards. And again, if you decided to copy this one, you would click copy, it would rename it. You can edit the groups too. You can change the name of the group once it becomes yours. You can change the color of it. You can edit it. Everything's editable. You will get all those other tabs where, see how long that column is? You'll have those add sections because it'll be your own copy. So you can add it. So let me go back. Oh no, it opened it in a new tab. Okay. But you can kind of scroll through here and see if there's something. One of the things that was recommended in some of the trainings that I've been seeing from Hapara lately is to make sure that maybe somewhere in there, especially this first week, that maybe you include some type of form or some type of check-in, like, hey, how you feeling today? With I've seen some Google Forms with, like, if you're familiar with Google Forms, if not, contact one of us and we will help you with that. But it'll have like a little smiley face, great. They'll have a meh face and a, I'm sad, I miss all my classmates and whatever. But check in with your kids because chances are they're kind of going a little stir crazy maybe, like we are too. And they don't have the ability to just drive themselves around town and walk in the desert like maybe some of us do. I don't know. I don't know what you do. Hopefully you'll be able to get out and get some fresh air. But anyway, this is a place where you could discover other things that are already created. No sense reinventing the wheel. And I'm thinking, let me go back to my presentation here. So what I wanted to share next is, yes, I'm going to go back to present and go to this screen. I'm going to leave it up for a minute. I actually clicked on it. Oh, that was an active link. How about that? I wasn't trying to make that happen. I was trying to go on to the next. Okay, so I have this up. This website, there's the website for all of the Hapara tutorial videos. And that's a QR code that I will leave up there for a minute. So if you want to pull your smartphone up and scan it, you can, and it'll take you to that link. So you can check out anything that I've talked about from the Hapara professionals, or things that I didn't talk about at all, I might have skipped, or just different areas that might be of interest to you. So I'll leave that up on the screen. And I think that's about all I was going to cover today in this Beginning Hapara. And I might have missed something. So if you have a question, I'm ready to kind of open this up to questions now. And I'm going to let you field those for a minute, Steve, because I want to leave this on the screen long enough for people to get their cameras out. And if you're not sure, no matter what phone you have, whether you have an Android or an iPhone, or, well, if you have like a Nokia flip phone, it won't work so much.
While I'm looking at the chat, if you would take that live link and if you would just add it to the chat for everybody, so the link will be available in the chat. I can't grab that link.
Okay. Yeah,
okay.
I will. I have to not be sharing my screen in order to do that.
Okie dokie.
So, yeah, so I'll put that in there in just a minute. Well, I'll do it and then I'll reshare. How about that?
All right.
Stop
so
share.
as we're sitting here, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in, which is just dandy.
Okay, so I'm going to Copy that link. I'm not sharing anymore, right? You're looking at my face only?
That is correct.
Okay, oops. Is it still in present mode? Yes, it is. Okay, they can still grab it, even if I'm not. Oh,
This is
I'm not sharing.
Payetta. Thanks for joining us. And everybody else, I might as well just put in what I wanted to say, right? Which is, hey, if you need us for anything, whether it's individually or within your PLC, because we can do the same kind of hangout with 3 or 4 people within a PLC or grade level, and work on some of those other apps to use within Hapara, within Google Classroom, and so on, will be available for you. Check our calendars. I put in a link to our palmdalesd.org/edtech website, and you'll see a link to virtual calendars. You're going to notice that they're quite full for this week, but there are some virtual meeting times. Or just email us and say, our team would like to meet with you, and we would set up an appointment, coordinate, and meet online to show you how to do some of these things in small groups or individually.
Okay, and I see we have a couple of questions that have been popped up since now. So I posted the link, the hapara-now.wistia.com. That'll be the link to all the tutorials that you can watch later at your convenience. And then there were a couple questions. If you've added admin to Google Classroom, will they also be co-teachers in Hapara? I don't know. I've never tried it. Try it and see. Oh, you know what? Yes. But not in Workspace, in the classroom, because I have, where's my Hapara tab? And let me share my screen again, just for a quick second here. Super quick.
So the other question while you're doing that was whether or not the videos that were submitted on evidence, do we have rights to post it and share it with other students? You know, it's kind of like within a classroom, I would say you do. To share it outside of your classroom, the answer would be no.
Yeah. So here, this class right here, this, you see my screen, yes? Chromebook Academy. This was, I synced this class from Google Classroom, and you can see that Chris Jones, Dan, Jerry, and Steve were all on that Google Classroom as teachers. Therefore, in the regular Hapara, where we have like managing our classrooms as far as dashboards concerned, as far as being able to share files with these students, like I showed you in, so if I choose this class, as far as being able to share files directly from our drives, any one of us could do that because we are all listed as teachers on this. If I go to class info, you can see these are all the teachers that came directly from the Google Sync, but that will not be the same as Workspace. So Workspace, you would have to then re-add them if you wanted to share them that way.
So the other thing is, Graciela asked, how do I delete a class? And the answer to that is, if it was made by Infinite Campus, the answer is no.
And
you can
actually,
archive it.
I think that's the same thing with Google Classroom. You can archive the Google Classroom sync class, but you can't delete it because I don't think Hapara lets you delete anything, like ever. So it's always available. Is to create